Hi, I'm Jason. This is Chicago Mastering Service. Most of the gear in here is analog, actually. We don't. There is a lot of like outboard digital processing gear, but we haven't really gotten to the point where we've invested in that a lot yet. But mostly because A, it tends to be quite expensive, and B, I think there are finally starting to be plugins that do a pretty terrific job. The same tasks for the most part. The center of our whole operation here is this transfer console, which is an analog transfer console that was built for us by a local engineer whose name is Shea Ako. And he is kind of a electronics wizard that keeps a lot of Chicago studios humming along. But he is a really talented electronics designer, among many other skills. And so we sort of looked at, there are some companies that make things like this, which basically consists of an input stage where you can balance left and right in very exact dB steps. In this case, it's quarter dB steps for balancing the stereo image. Or you can bypass this stage if you don't need to use that. And then it has a couple of sources, which are either a source from the computer or a source from the tape machine. And then it has a row of inserts, which is where all these pieces of gear can be inserted into the path one at a time, or they can all be bypassed. And then built in is one of the, sort of a piece of gear that's built into the console is an MS encoder and decoder stage so that we can play with the stereo image if we need to. And then an output gain. So you can also bypass all the gain stages, and then you're essentially just using this as a passive box to put things in line. But he also designed these really high quality electronics so that if we need to do gain adjustments, it's a very penalty-free way to do it, sonically speaking. So he designed and built this to our specifications, this thing and this meter bridge, and there's another box underneath the console here that has all the inputs for the inserts and sort of does all the switching and stuff. He did a bunch of original design and had circuit boards created and stuff that he now has more of. Basically, this was fairly costly, but if we needed to build another one, it would actually be a decent amount less, because most of the R&D he had to do involved like creating circuit boards and having them manufactured and stuff. So now he's got a little pile of our circuit boards and he can do things with them for us in the future. So that's the good part. And then this is a monitor controller. This is the remote control for our monitor controller. So essentially these two devices sort of equal a little mini console in recording studio terms. And this basically does our signal routing and metering, and then this device has a corresponding box in the other room, which basically handles all the chores related to playing audio out of the speakers. And it has multiple inputs. This is made by Crane Song, a company up in Wisconsin. And it has multiple inputs, and the main feature of this and other mastering monitor controllers is that you can do volume offset. So like you can see this thing being at X volume here. And then you can actually hit this again when it blinks, and you can see that it's offset by a certain amount relative to where the original level is. So what that allows you to do is set up a source and destination situation where you can switch between what you started with and what you're doing, but you can take out any volume increases that you're adding. Because generally when you're mastering something, if it's just louder and you flip it back and forth, people are going to always say, yes, I like that more, So if you take the loudness difference out of the equation, then you really just hear, am I really flattening the depth of this? Am I adding distortion? Am I, doing undesirable things to the frequency spectrum? So it sort of lets you compare apples to apples. So that's what that's basically about. And this actually has built-in digital to analog converters. So we're listening to all sources that are digital through the same set of converters. So that's another way where you're sort of comparing.
Oh, that's really important.
You're comparing things, in a way that, makes it feasible to make sound decisions about them.